Hey everyone, welcome back to Reading with Tatiana. Today I'm reviewing the first book in the series, The Henna Artist by Alka Joshi, and I gave this book a 4 out of 5. My Booktuber shout today is a new Booktuber called Sophie's Chapter. She only started her Booktube a month ago and she already has 5 videos. So if you want to give Sophie a follow, I'll link her channel down below. And as always, before I go into my full book review, if you like my content, I would really appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you have read The Henna Artist, I would love to hear what you thought in the comments down below. The genre and year of this book, it was published in 2020, and the genre is historical fiction, and specifically is set during the time of India's independence and shortly after. And it's also Alka Joshi's debut novel, which I think is pretty exciting. A bit about the author, Alka Joshi. I do want to share that she is 62, and why I'm sharing that number is because, as I mentioned earlier, this is her debut novel, so just goes to show it's never too late to start writing if it's something that interests you. Alka Joshi is born in Rajasthan in India, which is where the book is set, which I thought was really awesome. She came to the US with her family as an immigrant when she was 9 years old, and she graduated from University of Stanford, and she also has a Master of Fine Arts. Earlier in her career, she has done several roles, such as an advertising copywriter, a marketing consultant, and also an illustrator. She now currently resides in California with her husband with their 2 dogs. I do want to say that at the end of this book, there's a little blurb saying that this book was actually inspired by her mom, because her mom was also a person that experienced arranged marriage and shortly had 3 kids back to back to back. So this book is actually kind of, I guess, like a fantasy or exploring what could have also been for her mom if she didn't get arranged marriage, and the possibilities of being an independent woman. So I thought that was kind of like a lovely epilogue to the story. The story starts where we meet Lakshmi, and she grew up in the rural countryside of India, and she was a person who went to an arranged marriage, but her husband Hari was very abusive because she wasn't able to get pregnant. So then she fled the city, which in India at the time, especially during the independence, so this is in the 1950s, 1960s, it was, it brought great shame to her family to abandon your husband, because divorce wasn't really a thing, or like separation. So she had to leave her hometown, her home village, and she went to the city Jaipur, where she had to make a name for herself and work in the streets and that kind of stuff, till ultimately she became the henna artist and very renowned. So then she would henna women of higher class and high society, and she made really good money, and her hope was that one day she could build a house in Jaipur and bring her parents to the city to kind of thank them and to show that she left them, but she was really trying to make something of her life for them. So far you get a scene where Lakshmi's life is perfect. She's working hard, she's making money, she's paying her dues. However, one day, Radha is her sister, who she didn't know existed, very much younger, and I think only 13 years old. And she arrives, Radha, with Lakshmi's ex-husband, Hari, in Jaipur. And, basically her whole life is crumbling down because she never knew she had a sister. She comes to find that her parents are no longer, and her whole world that she's built comes crumbling down. And that's where I'm going to end the summary, because I don't want to have any spoilers. But this book was just really great because it kind of talks about someone who is born into the system. And in India, if you're not familiar with it, they have certain castes they are part of, which is like basically you're born in this caste and you're kind of stuck with it, and that's just your life. So this story has a lot of intricate stories, especially being set during when India just gained independence from Britain. So there's a lot of like clash of old versus new, Eastern versus modern, traditional versus modern. So it's really great, and this is the first of 3 books, so I'm really excited to read the second and third book of the series. Common themes I found in the book, as what always happens when you kind of learn about different culture that's not North America, is the common themes of duty as a duty to your family. In India, when you have arranged marriage, you're helping your family because you're joining this other family, so your family doesn't have to feed you anymore. But it was kind of a duty to give like a son, to give many kids. And now we live in North America in 2022. Like, you don't have to have a kid, you don't have to get married. So the novel talks about that quite a bit. I also touched on it earlier. It talks about the caste system and also the class, high society versus low society, and how there's certain expectations and how people in higher society can afford or can buy certain privileges. So I thought that was very fun to read about in the book. And the other thing that also is a common theme through the book, as Lakshmi, the protagonist, has established her own life in Jaipur. When her sister comes, her sister hasn't had a lot of exposure or experience in the city, and there's lots of obviously conflict. And it kind of talks about like, are things black and white or is it more gray? So I thought that was also very interesting in the book as the plot develops. Things I didn't enjoy about this book. So there is a glossary at the end of the book, which is great because throughout the book, Alka Joshi uses, I believe, Hindi words to describe certain things. However, there were quite a number of words that actually she used that wasn't in the glossary, so I didn't like that inconsistency. I also didn't enjoy how sometimes like really random words were used. So for example, one word was for broom, but that was only used once in the novel. So I felt like I'm really curious what was her thought pattern on picking and choosing what words to put in Hindi and what words not to put. And the inconsistency of it being used but not available was also very frustrating. Other thing I didn't enjoy about the book that made me ultimately give it 4 out of 5 instead of a 5 out of 5 was overall, I enjoyed it. It was fun to read. But something was missing. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I think maybe it's because it kind of wrapped up so neatly considering how there's so many loose ends and how much drama there was. So that was kind of like unbelievable, and it made me break that suspension of disbelief that I'm reading like a fictional novel. So that would be one of my things I didn't like about this book. Things I did enjoy, so the first thing I mentioned earlier was there is a glossary in the back of all the Hindi terms that Alka uses throughout the book. And also at the very beginning, there is actually a reference of all the characters that come out through the book. Because there's a huge cast of characters, it's very easy to forget who's who. So I really appreciate that there was a reference of all the characters in the beginning and a short description, and also a glossary at the back. Other things I quite enjoy about the book is if you're unfamiliar with Indian culture and society, at the very back, again, she has a short blurb about the caste system and also about the history of henna, as this book is called The Henna Artist. The other reason that's personal that I really enjoyed this book is because I actually went to India back in 2019 for 3 months, and I got to go to Jaipur and Rajasthan, and this book just kind of brought me back to my experience there, and it was really awesome. The last thing I also really enjoy about this book that kind of ties into the theme is there's a line in the book where Lakshmi says, if I can change, why can't he? And it's referring to her ex-husband. And I really love that because it shows a lot of empathy and a reminder that, like, even if someone does something really awful to you in your past, maybe you don't decide to share a life together, and that's totally fine, but don't think they can never change, because we're people, we're human, and we can always change if we choose to. On Goodreads, this book got an average of 4.2 out of 5, and I think it's very accurate. This book has now been out for 2 or so years, so I feel like it's accurate, but over time, things change, so it might be lower, who knows. Reasons why people didn't like it is, and this is why I was saying that maybe why the number might change in the future, is lots of Indians thought this book was a bit frivolous and it romanticized Indian culture, and it's really just for white women who finds India exotic and swoons at the spirituality. But I kind of disagree with that, because at the end of the day, like, this is a historical fiction. It's a fictional book. It is written by Indian women. And, it kind of reminds me of Crazy Rich Asians, how when I read it, I was like, oh, this is so crazy, it's so baffling, like, it's obviously not realistic. But it's just a sneak peek, and I think it just tries to personify the extreme richness of society. So I feel this book is a bit like that, and just because it's not factual doesn't mean it's not good. So I think you just have to go in knowing that this is a work of fiction. Reasons why people enjoyed this book, I kind of mentioned earlier, reasons why I liked it, and also other people on Goodreads said they liked it. They thought it was great prose, it flowed very naturally, it was engrossing, it was a unique setting, especially set during post-independence of India, and also people loved it because it was a way of traveling to a place where they would otherwise not have a chance to travel to. Why you should read this book, I think you should read it if you're interested in learning a bit about Indian culture. Again, it's not factual, but it's kind of fun to be exposed to it. Another reason why you should read it is if you like the show Bridgerton or the books Bridgerton, this book kind of reminds me of it, because everything's kind of like, you have to act and say certain things. You can't be too direct and, mixing with high class. So I really enjoyed this book because of that. So if you like that, I would definitely recommend this book for you. Now I'll share how this book made me feel, because as always, I love to ask how a book made someone feel, because if you ask me a week, a year, 5 years from now, I probably won't remember exactly what a book is about, but I'll always remember how it made me feel. So this book, The Henna Artist by Alka Joshi, it made me feel bad about how maybe not now because this book was set in the 1950s, but I know it still exists now in lots of societies around the world where people are limited and restricted due to their society, status in society, and I feel very limited. And it just made me feel bad that I have a life where I feel very fortunate, and other people out there are struggling. So that's how this book made me feel, but I think it's still worth reading. Thank you as always for watching until the end of my video for my full book review on The Henna Artist by Alka Joshi. Again, if you've read it, I would love to hear your comments down below. And as always, if you can hit the subscribe button, I really appreciate it. And if you want to join me next time, I am starting Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. And this book I know has been out for a few years, but they're doing a movie adaptation. So, I love books to movies, so I can't wait. And I just noticed that by chance that both these books are Reese's Book Club, and I believe I just also read Local Women Missing. That was also a Reese's Book Club. So I think this is a sign for me to look for other books to read because I don't want to fall into the same genre all the time. So yeah, I'll see you guys next time. And again, thanks for watching. Bye.